Picture this, a mercenary that ends up believing in the cause. His mission to steal the Death Star plans. Black-armored stormtroopers guard Imperial secrets. A Clone Wars officer oversees a weapons system for the Empire. Darth Vader is also present in the story. Oh, you thought I was talking about Rogue One? Nah, I'm talking about the 30-year-old classic, Star Wars Dark Forces. The first Star Wars game that was a full-time FPS. Since the continuity reset, this story isn't canon to the Disney Star Wars storyline, but I just don't care. This game is fun, and that's what matters. Funnily enough, I didn't know about this game until about 10 years after its release. I was in 5th grade at the time. A friend and I were talking about Star Wars games. I mentioned how I love Shadows of the Empire and its on-foot sections, but wished that the game had more. He then tells me about Dark Forces. I wouldn't find a copy of the game until high school, but the story my friends spun about the Dark Troopers convinced me to get it. Finally, seeing the foundations of what the Star Wars FPS can be was quite the experience. I won't go over every detail in this game, but I will highlight some things about the story and such. That famous opening crawl in retro computer graphics is quite novel. It establishes our mission to steal the Death Star plans, but if that wasn't enough, we also get a mission briefing. Hey, redundancy is something the military loves to drill in your head. If it's repeated, you won't forget it. Starting up, I'm surprised that we don't fight stormtroopers first. Instead, we blast an Imperial Commando and some officers. That Imperial Commando looks identical to the Navy troopers, but the manual begs to differ. Don't worry, there's plenty of stormtroopers outside the blast. Kyle's handy blaster pistol, the Briar, is dependable and reliable. Of course, if you're like me, you prefer the fully automatic E11 blaster rifle. Funny how full auto was never used in the movies, by either the Rebels or the Empire. Moving on to the health system, Kyle is an even more advanced version of what Doom offered. Instead of armor shards, you pick up battery power for your personal shields. At this point in Star Wars, we have not seen personal shields, but it would explain why Kyle doesn't die in one hit. My first time playing this, I'm pretty sure I got lost. Thankfully, a map comes in handy, but I didn't use it here because I know where to go. Playing it now, I can beat this mission in less than 5 minutes. Wait, that's it? Cal finished this mission without dying? I think this was a bold decision by the developers to go this route. Most developers would have probably made the whole story about stealing Death Star plans. But I'll say, this is a great way of establishing Kyle Katarn's credibility as a mercenary. Lord Vader meets up with the game's big bad, General Mach. Since the Death Star went kaput, the General uses this opportunity to demonstrate the new weapons system he developed, the Dark Trooper. They drop them on a planet housing a rebel base, and you can see the battle from space. Sheesh, what kind of weapons do those things have? An army of these things is going to be difficult to deal with, let alone a single Dark Trooper. We finally get a look at our hero, Kyle Katarn. I really like his design. He's not dressed as either a Han Solo or Luke XP. The Old West look is still applied to Kyle, similar to Han Solo. The brown jacket looks like something a cattleman would wear. Spicing up with the anchorism, he's got the space armor underneath his jacket. Crazy to think this ex-stormtrooper's only 23 years old. My dude looks like he's pushing 35. I'm 30, and I look younger than him here. I guess he's aged fast with all the difficulty he's been through already in life. The manual talks about how he joined the Empire because his father was killed in a rebel attack. He later learns from a friend and future pilot Jan Ors that this was a false flag attack. This spurs Kyle to leave the Empire and become a mercenary who leans towards the Rebel Alliance. It's fitting that a stormtrooper is on the cover of the game. It's a reflection of where Kyle used to stand, a pawn who then becomes so much more, a force to fight against dark forces. Thanks to Imperial Officer Crix Madine, we have some info on these mysterious Dark Troopers. Kyle and Jen begin their quest to uncover the secrets behind the Empire's new toys. Dark Forces goes heavy on the action. There's more to the game structure than just blasting Imperial troops. Doom would have you find keys and get to the exit. Not so here. Over the course of the game, you uncover different kinds of information that will lead you to the Dark Troopers. I must say, the environmental storytelling is probably ignored by a lot of people, myself included the first time I played. Charred bodies scattered throughout, walls blown apart, and a single piece of evidence for what happened here. A large blasters with the initials MR. We may know about the Dark Troopers and what they look like, but the main characters don't. It's cool that an early FPS went this route to entice the player into the story. A cool detail is that your ship that dropped you off will also return to pick you up. I bet this was really amazing back in 1995. This leads to a series of events on different planets, where Kyle will find more pieces to the puzzle. Dark Forces also has a sewer level. I hated it in Shadows of the Empire, I also hate it here. Granted, I played it as a teenager, so it wasn't really scary. I still got lost. All those switches and such, and you have to press, all just annoying. Speaking of Shadows of the Empire, this game scratched an itch that I was feeling with Shadows. I understand why Shadows is the way it is, but the only thing I wished for that game was larger amounts of enemies to fight. Dark Forces does that. Not just a larger amount of enemies, but a better variety. Again, I know Shadows of the Empire came out after this. The Nintendo 64 was new tech, so it couldn't be too long. Okay, I get it. Oh, sweet, thermal detonators. You know, we never got to see these used in the movies at this point. Princess Leia pulled one out, but didn't use it. Aggressive negotiations, just like her father. Anyways, Kyle's investigation leads him to a red planet where they're mining a material called Frick. No freaking way. Is it just Mars but reskinned to be a Star Wars planet? I'm joking, but thematically it is fitting that a red planet reminiscent of Mars is in the game, especially because an instrument of war is housed here. We meet a Dark Trooper. Lucky for us, this thing is only armed with a vibroblade and a shield. It takes a hefty amount of punishment, that's for sure. A droid that resembles a knight of medieval times. I'm just glad it's not armed with a lightsaber. That would have been a bad weekend for Kyle. Bad news, Krix Madine has been found out by General Mach and Darth Vader. I think it's funny he's got a beard in the mission briefings, but is clearly clean-shaven in the cutscene. Vader suspects that Katarn is going to be causing trouble, but Mach tells him not to worry. His new higher hand will see to that. Oh snap, it's Boba Fett. I loved his boss battle in Shadows of the Empire. Another chance to go toe-to-toe with the legendary bounty hunter was something I was looking forward to. Since this takes place before Empire and Return of the Jedi, we know that Madine will be rescued before he's executed. Time to bust him out of the Imperial prison. This was another level I got lost in. There's an elevator section that you have to move to certain floors, then get behind the wall in a secret passage. I didn't know how to do all this on my first time, and I was lost for hours. Old school first-person shooters would give me bad motion sickness back in the day. Now, not at all. We rescue Madine, and look at that, he's got a beard again. Thanks to the info that Madine gets us, we get a history lesson on General Mach. We learn that he's a Clone Wars veteran. When this game came out, Star Wars fans didn't know exactly what the Clone Wars was all about. It's interesting that this game gives us a hint into the conflict. If you couldn't tell from that first Dark Trooper encounter, they're droids. The first one was called the Phase 1. It wasn't too hard to deal with if you kept your distance. We now know that the Clone Wars was fought between clones and droids. General Mach used what was learned from the droid and clone armies to combine the best of both worlds. There's 2 more phases that we have yet to encounter. With the exception of the sewer level, all the enemies we've fought so far have been Imperials. The docking port we find ourselves in brings in Gran and Gamorrean guards. They are a good representation of the Empire using unscrupulous means to do their bidding. Most Star Wars fans know that the Empire is xenophobic and human-centric, but that doesn't stop them from hiring aliens to do their dirty work that they don't want the general public to be aware of. The Empire as a whole may be xenophobic, but it's nice to see that they can still use the bathroom together. Our journey to the robotics facility looks a lot like Hoth. Well, not really, but it's a nice planet, so close enough. You make your way inside to set up explosives in the heart of the facility and meet the Phase 2 Dark Trooper. These guys are extremely resilient. Don't bother with your small fry weapons. Go with the thermal detonators or the fusion cutter to take him down. As you can see, I'm dodging and weaving those giant balls of blue plasma. I'm glad I had full shields for this fight, because I would be dead otherwise. At least I did way better in this fight than Din Djarin. Great balls of fire! What did Jan pack in those explosives? Nar Shaddaa. It gets its video game introduction here. Today we're used to the prequel depiction of urban sprawl in the form of Coruscant. Now take that concept of a large planet-wide city, but now you place it on a moon, and make everything worse. Way, way worse.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Aliens and Imperials run amok here to just simply ruin your day. We're introduced to the Trandoshan bounty hunters who have concussion rifles. These guys are mad annoying, so shoot them first before they shoot you. Finding the navigational data for General Mock's ship, the Arc Hammer, we can blow this rock. Not literally like the last one, but you know. Well, well, well. Our shenanigans with fighting the Hutt cartel has bitten us in the booty. A surprise appearance by Jabba the Hutt? Definitely not a welcome one. He thinks feeding us to his pet dragon is going to stop us? Yeah, right. Kyle's going to escape from here, no problem. All these cameos are probably seen as ordinary occurrences by today's standards in Star Wars storytelling, but in 1995, I bet this was like a big deal. Regarding this level, I just want to say, I hate it. Jabba's goons strip you of your cool jacket and weapons, and then an alien dinosaur enters the pit you're in? What are we ever to do? We're playing as Kyle frickin' Katarn, and of course the answer is to punch the kill dragon. After that dragon, you have to find your gear and rescue Jan. The worst part of this level is that you don't find ammo for your regular blaster E11. Don't get me started on the grenade-happy enemies, the sturdy Gamorreans, or those stupid Trandoshan hunters. Thankfully, the Imperial repeater rifle is reliable. The Trando hunters drop ammo for it. This is a cool picture of Jabba with his entourage. You know, even replaying this mission, I still have trouble getting things done. These enemies, they just have too much health. Rescuing Jan and escaping was a foregone conclusion. Jabba would have been better off trying to blow up Kyle from a distance, but then we wouldn't have a grand epic finale now, would we? You know, I'm surprised we haven't run into Boba Fett yet. I like he wasn't immediately thrown into the game, like most stories would do now. His picture of Jabba on the Renaissance art piece is a nice reminder that he's still out there. In its second video game appearance, we get our boots on Coruscant. I don't think it's quite appreciated that we saw Coruscant now, because we see it all the time in the more recent media. Not only is Papa Palpatine a stone toss away from what's happening here, but this place is crawling with the might of the Galactic Empire. Kyle Katarn's a tough cookie, so I don't think he'll have any problems here. Okay, maybe the Dark Troopers on the planet would disagree, but we can take him. Phase 2 fight almost made me buy the farm. Even as late game as we are with all these weapons, don't underestimate those Dark Troopers. This puzzle stumped me on my first couple of playthroughs. I know how to complete the puzzle now. Old school video game design strikes again. Anyways, you get what you're coming for, but Jan calls in that something weird's going on. Running back to our dropship and pickup point always gives me a bit of trouble. Imperial City isn't really a maze per se, but it's also uniform and drab that it can confuse you sometimes. Making it back to the pickup point, we are greeted by Boba Fett. Boss battle time! I've been looking forward to this fight. He'll fly around firing his rockets at you. You could end the fight with the assault cannon really fast, but that wouldn't be too fun in my opinion. Fett will sometimes get stuck on the level's geometry, so it makes it a bit too easy. Bam, you defeat him. I'll be honest, I didn't think this boss fight was very noteworthy. It was serviceable enough, but not as fun as the Shadows of the Empire one. Well, at least that game has one up on this one, I suppose. It's interesting that the manual mentions Kyle and Fett had a previous run-in before. What I would do is make a Boba Fett video game and have Kyle Katarn as a boss character. Although Boba Fett did stop my friend Rob's playthrough, in that universe Boba Fett collected the bounty on Kyle and the rebellion got destroyed by the Dark Trooper Project. Oof. Hey Rob, finish that game and save the rebellion, will ya? Okay, so these next two levels are about getting to the Arc Hammer, the ship responsible for churning out Dark Troopers. Cool, sounds simple enough. The plan is not so simple. The plan is to get inside a cargo container to hop a ride onto the Executor, then make its way to the Arc Hammer at a rendezvous point. May I remind you that that is the Dark Lord of the Sith's flagship. Kyle Katarn is good, but he's not that good. We're one Bull Rancor's swipe away from Darth Vader himself. If the developers are obsessed about subverting expectation as Rian Johnson was, then this game could have ended a lot like Rogue One. Thankfully, we never encounter Vader. We do fight some Dark Troopers, and they knock me into next Tuesday, so there's that. The Rebellion should be thanking Kyle for dealing with this mess single-handedly. Pre-Return of the Jedi Luke would not be able to take on these guys. Han Solo would either die super fast or blindly luck his way out of winning. There's no in-between for him. Chewie would be fine, he can rip their arms off. Leia wouldn't be dumb enough to put herself in that situation. Getting off the Executor gives me a huge sigh of relief. Kyle finally makes it to the Arc Hammer. It's time to put an end to these things. The mission briefing reiterates the first 2 phases of the Dark Trooper. That means there's one last phase. What could be worse than Phase 2? I guess we'll find out, won't we? The ship is heavily defended with not only both phases of Dark Troopers, but a legion of Stormtroopers and turrets to impede your progress. I've died a couple times during this mission. Even on repeat playthroughs, I still struggle through the ship. Those 2 Dark Troopers at the end still give me a run for my money. Look at my health, I'm in danger. Yep, another Dark Trooper attacks. Now my health is even worse. Our question to what the Phase 3 Dark Trooper is finally gets an answer. It's a mech suit for use by Imperial soldiers. General Ron Muck personally greets us in the mech suit. I'm nearly on death's door. Luckily, the assault cannon is a faithful friend. That secondary rocket mode is quite helpful. I defeated some of the strongest soldiers of the Empire, and a single Imperial officer is the last enemy to fight. Get wrecked, scrub. Vader looks on the destruction of the Archammer. His words trigger a thought in my mind.
This is an unfortunate setback. The Force is strong with Catan.
What could this mean for him? Oh, sick metal, Kyle. What a journey this game was. An ex-stormtrooper turned mercenary fought the might of the Empire and won. This game took major steps in the shooter genre. I didn't really talk about it because it's so second nature to do so many of the things we do now in shooters. Ducking, vertical aiming, and cutscenes in between levels are such standard practices in FPS games now that it doesn't even look impressive when it's played, 30 years later. If not appreciated for its contributions to the genre of shooters, then we can still appreciate its influence on other Star Wars projects. Dark Troopers appeared in the pandemic classic Battlefront games as a playable class for the Empire. The lore reason they appear in Battlefront adds to what I mentioned about General Mock's ideas for the Clone Wars. The Dark Troopers in Battlefront 1 and 2 are cyborgs of veteran clone troopers, a Phase 0 if you will. I'm sure the Empire collected the battlefield data for their tactics to implement in the Dark Trooper droids. It's fitting then we go full circle with the type of soldiers used in the galaxy, from humanoid to clone to droid to back to humanoid. With a brief appearance in Empire at War versus the Corruption, we wouldn't get another appearance from the Dark Troopers until Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Their design is a bit different here, but I still appreciate their appearance. A single unit gave Din Djarin a run for his money. It translated their threat into live action rather exquisitely. Aside from the Dark Troopers appearing in Disney's canon, we also got the Briar pistol in the 2015 Battlefront, and wielded by Cassian Andor in his show. The first steps into a larger world of first-person Star Wars began here. Following this game, we'd get an evolution to what a Star Wars shooter can be. Darth Vader's words about Kyle Katarn meant a lot more than just saying he's pretty good. The title would even evolve. Star Wars Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. But I'm not going to get to that game just yet. I'm going to look over Jedi Power Battles next, so may the Force be with you.